In the world of content creation, many have tried their best to live up to an image of purity and virtue. This mask often slips, and we see the truth of what lies beneath. So often we see pseudo-heroes exposed by their own misdeeds, humbled, and placed back into reality for their fans to catch them. I understand that controversy creates attention, and though this may create viewership, is there another way? Is there another way for someone to make their mark? Mark Edward Fishbach was born June 28, 1989, on an army base in Honolulu, Hawaii. Mark's father, a career military man, was stationed there and served. Mark's family wouldn't stay in Hawaii long, as his father would retire and take a job in Ohio. The young, not yet YouTube celebrity has stated that his childhood home was a great source of happiness, especially the woods in the back of his home, where he and his older brother Tom spent so much time. Mark's known as a gamer, and his love of games started with his time playing with Tom on the Super Nintendo Tom had been gifted one Christmas. Sadly, this console served a dual purpose, as Mark's mother and father argued quite a bit. The boys tried to block this out, but eventually it all reached a boiling point, and Mark's parents would divorce. This was a hard time for Mark. The boys loved their father, and seeing him hurt took a toll on them. Mark was forced to move out of his childhood home, and with half of the family's income gone, times were tough. Mark would also lose all of his old friends and have to start over in a new school. But with an act of, let's say, well, stupidity, things would change for Mark. Mark was playing one day on the monkey bars of all things, when in a freak accident he fell and obliterated his arm. This act would cause Mark to be placed in a cast and make simple tasks like sharpening his pencil become difficult. Luckily, a boy named Drew was there to help Mark, and the two became fast friends. It was through his friendship with Drew that Mark would find the band, and in his depiction of the story, blow people away with his amazing trumpet skills. Mark was starting to find his way, and something, or should I say someone, would also change the lives of Mark, his brother, and more importantly, his father. Mark's dad had been dating and living his life when a woman Mark called Dee would meet the boys' approval. One, because they bought them a PlayStation 2. But more importantly, Dee did something that Mark and Tom couldn't do. She took away the sadness in Mark's dad's heart. With everything as it should be, Mark seemed to be on the right trajectory. Mark was doing well in high school, and even dated a girl or two, describing this in his Draw My Life video, speaking of kissing, making out, etc. Mark had a desire to design games, and was his plan before college. But as is life, things don't always work out as we want. Mark's father would hand him a piece of paper that would change Mark's world. His father had cancer, a very aggressive type. Mark around this time had known that he wanted to design video games. But with the news of his father's illness, Mark would start college. He would study civil engineering, but then switch to medical engineering and back again, also rethinking his old desire for game design. To say this was a confusing time for our young Mark would be an understatement, and it wouldn't get easier anytime soon. Mark was home for summer break when he was awoken by these screams of his stepmother. Mark rushed to her to see what was wrong, and he saw his father, who had deteriorated from his hard-fought battle with cancer. Mark was there to hear his last words. "I love you so much." Mark held his father's hand as he passed away. I'm going to break the fourth wall here a bit. Break character, if you will. I'm someone whose father is his hero. And watching Mark talk about this tore at my heart. I'm one who tries to be a professional in making this content, but it has to be stated how strong Mark had to be to go through this and still move forward. I simply wish to say thank you to him for being so candid and honest with this story. I couldn't imagine someone going through such an ordeal and it not leaving a bit of a scar. Mark was so confused at this time, doing co-op jobs that drained him emotionally and mentally. Mark was just drifting by. Mark would also date here and there, eventually meeting someone he liked. Mark would eventually take this girl to meet his mother. To Mark's surprise, his mother did not approve, and his mother and he would engage in an argument, with Mark eventually being kicked out of the place they stayed. If Mark didn't have bad luck, he would have no luck at all, as he would be fired from his co-op job soon after getting his own place. With the stress of losing his job and now arguing with and breaking up with his girlfriend, Mark had hit a wall. To add more to his plate, Mark was starting to feel extreme pain. So much so that he was forced to go to the ER, where he was informed that his appendix had grown to be massive and needed to be removed, as well as a tumor in his adrenal gland that also needed to be taken care of at a later date. Mark was able to get through this. It was a trying time, but with the aid of his stepmother Dee, who had still supported him, and his mother, who he had reconciled with, he made it. But things, again, had to change for Mark. This was truly the last straw for Mark. As he lay in that hospital bed, he made up his mind. Mark had been trying to please everyone except himself. Mark decided he was going to do what made him happy. This would lead him to YouTube. And on April 4th, 2012, Mark posted his first video, and thus, Markiplier was born. Mark's original idea was to do sketch comedy, as he would play many different characters, but he also played games like Amnesia, Dead Space, etc. Mark had instant growth, and people truly enjoyed his content. But this is Mark after all, and nothing ever comes easy. Just as Mark was gaining traction, his AdSense account was taken down, and all Mark's work was for naught. But Mark was not deterred. He would create a new channel and work even harder, putting up content at a rapid pace. But it would be an animatronic bear that would change Mark's life once again. Five Nights at Freddy's, or FNAF for short, was a lower budget independent game created by Scott Cawthon. And though many Let's Players showed off the game, Mark made it his own. His reactions to the jump scares and his genuine terror of animatronics led to some of the most entertaining viewing to this day. Still gaining millions of views on the YouTube platform, Mark and FNAF have been linked to each other, growing in tandem in popularity. So much so that Mark was featured in FNAF's Special Deliveries game as a voice cameo. Mark would even crown himself the king of Five Nights at Freddy's. with an animated crown and all. Mark has been through much in his life, and yet he has constantly given back to those in need. In 2017, Forbes reported that Mark and his fans had raised around $3 million for charity through the events he participated in. In March of 2018, in celebration of reaching 20 million subscribers, Mark announced he would donate all proceeds from a 48-hour sale of his Tastefully Nudes charity calendar to the Cancer Research Institute. He raised over $400,000 for charity and has won the Oliver R. Grace Award. This philanthropy is one of the reasons Mark is beloved by so many. Mark eventually would get back to what he originally wanted to do on the platform: sketch comedy, with his interactive content, A Date with Markiplier receiving positive feedback. Markiplier would also launch a channel with fellow content creator Ethan Nestor, hopefully I'm saying that right, also known as Crank Gameplays, called Unos Anos, which means 1 year. The concept was to create a channel, content for a year, and delete the channel no matter the success. This was a revolutionary idea, but the fact that they achieved 1.5 million subscribers and still followed through with the deletion established it was never about the sub count. It was always about entertaining the audience and keeping their word. I really could go on about the charity work, content creation, business ventures, and even tragedies of Mark Edward Fishbach, but we may be here for hours. And honestly, I'd rather you learn about this incredible human being for yourself. Mark has had a roller coaster of a life, but has shared it with us every step of the way. From his videos with his family to bearing it all in the stories of his life, Mark is what I believe others should strive to be. A regular guy who had a dream and followed it, but never forgot to thank everyone that helped him along the way, truly leaving his mark on the platform that changed his life.